Ever meet someone, but something's just off?
Absolutely no abortions. It's a religion.
Give me Kristen. Give me Kathy.
Got this.
Ladies, we've got the top 6 answers on the board. We asked 100 women, after the lips, what's your favorite part of a man to kiss? Kristen.
Rhymes with
Wow. Right out the gate.
I'm sorry. I'm a good Christian girl. Forgive me.
It rhymes with it.
I'm gonna say cheek.
A cheek. You gonna stand right over there, young lady. You stay right over there, young lady.
I will.
Nicest woman I've ever met. Oh my God, I can just tell you're just a wonderful person. Rhymes with sissy. Welcome to Sunday Night TV, folks. All right, I'm gonna say this one time. We talked to 100 women. This is all 100 women. Dan, after the lips, what's your favorite part of a man to kiss?
The neck.
The neck.
Good answer. Good answer.
Jess, after the lips, what's your favorite part of a man to kiss?
Ear.
Ear.
Yeah. Good answer. Good answer.
Miss Mona, let me ask you something. Now, after the lips, what's your favorite part of a man to kiss?
Chest.
That'll get you a new car, Miss Mona. The chest. John, we got no strikes. We talked to 100 women after the lips. What's your favorite part of a man to kiss?
Bicep. Yeah. Good answer. Muscle.
Kiss the bicep, the guns.
That's all right. It was a good answer.
Hey, Miss Kathy.
Yes,
Talk
my
to 100 women. Other than the lips, what's your favorite part of a man to kiss?
For centuries, your people have
say
prospered on these
bottom.
strange and foreign shores, trading wares and civilized ideals with the natives.
Good answer.
War looms,
For years.
however, and you must take up arms to ensure their survival. Of the nearby
This bottom.
barbarian tribes, the Helvetii are the most religious. They must
All
be
right,
watched,
Dan, we got
but
2
beware of
strikes, man. We
provoking
gotta be
war
careful.
prematurely, as they
Chenoweth
have
team
many
can
allies
steal.
to the east.
Talk to 100 women
To
after
the
the
west,
lips. What's your
the
favorite part of a
Volcae
man to
are
kiss?
vulnerable. An expansion
Forehead.
here may gain
His
you an Atlantic
forehead.
port. Such versatility will serve you well in the coming struggle for the Mediterranean.
That's
The
crazy.
scions of Greece are destined to
Let's
rule the
see what
world.
happens.
Massilia shall conquer all.
Okay. Who are these people?
Can we ask anybody else? Okay, Kristen, here we go. We asked 100 women, after the lips, what's your favorite part of a man to kiss?
Hand.
Oh, that's it. That's it.
Yes.
His hand!
On the move. So we win.
Number 6. 5.
Are you ready to stand?
Your ass on YouTube. Your whole damn family on YouTube. Your whole damn family gonna be on YouTube. This about to be on YouTube.
I mean, ain't nothing like YouTube.
My dear gracious.
So you got a new job? Is it more money?
Yeah, dude, I got a new office, everything.
Hey, do you guys mind if I just show you a quick video of an innocent man getting murdered by the cops? Not that he would care, but...
Excuse me, do we know you?
Oh, excuse me. I got some extended footage here. Tells the entire story.
Oh, yeah, well, I got 5 more, so no shortage of that, as you know. Do you mind if we sit down, by the way?
Wow, we actually did a background check on the perp that these guys love. Not exactly the angel they're making him out to be.
No, and the cop was so great. How about 2012 when he became a cop? Not that this racist cares.
What, you gonna let him disrespect the boys in blue like that?
Yeah, I'm not racist.
Yeah, he's not a racist. Come on.
Oh, look at this. A video of a white guy getting beat up. A story nobody wants to talk about.
You're talking about it right now.
That was a peaceful beatdown, and you know it.
Oh, yeah, just like the peaceful burning down the city, a movement. Your
Well
gets
met,
behind
friend.
your grandmother.
My grandma's not going to a protest.
Oh, yeah, I bet your grandma's not going to a protest. Your
You
grandma
are
doesn't have
welcome,
a choice. And that was
although
you
my-
again. I'm surprised you made it this far, man. I'm so sorry.
Look, stand
The
up for yourself.
guards
This is
will
just
have
country
me
too.
listen
Who
to
are
you.
these guys? Can
I
someone
do
get
not
them out of
pass
here?
the day in words without merit.
Promotion, everything.
Okay. Enjoy your meal.
I,
Well met, friend.
Yeah, the job's gonna be great, man. Yeah,
And
I'm
let
so
your
jacked
words
about it.
move.
A little interesting that he got the promotion and not you, don't you think?
You work hard. You deserve that promotion.
I am
He's got
here
the
to
same
listen
job as me.
if you
Yeah, he
speak
doesn't have the same
honestly.
job as you. Probably
Truth
can't
will be
find
your
a job
sharpest
looking like him
weapon.
involved.
I have a job.
Just because you don't have a
Your
white
words
name.
bring
My name is
satisfaction.
Josh.
You know what? I actually have some black unemployment statistics that I carry around
I am
handily,
here
and,
to
it
listen
was quite to the
if you
contrary.
speak
Oh, I
honestly.
interviewed Richard
Truth
Spencer
will
again
be your
this week, and
sharpest
you and
weapon.
I are very clear on that.
We actually just interviewed some college
Your
kids who are
word.
happy you're becoming a minority in this country. They're pumped.
I really don't have an opinion on that, so.
That must be nice to just not care. You don't have a choice to care. Tell him.
How is it his fault?
Yeah, dude, we feel the same way.
I mean, we don't feel exactly the same way, but
There it is. Let it in. Tell him.
I mean, it affects me too.
I mean, it affects me a little bit more than it affects you, but it's okay.
Whoa, you work way too hard for this. Stand up for yourself. This is your country.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have to understand burning down the city's gonna change things, but.
Well, what do you think they should do?
Get your gun.
Okay, people. Here we go. Cameras out. Fight.
No,
Let it
no,
go.
we're not
Fight.
fighting.
Okay,
Here we go.
Going down.
No, not fighting. We're adults. Thank you. Not fighting.
Fight.
My wallet's gone.
Oh shit.
Was this about money the whole time?
Go,
Get
go,
him.
go, 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 go. Oh, is Mr. Promotion from Daddy not happy?
Guys, let's be honest. We all know someone who smokes. Or in more recent years, who vapes. Look, it's a nasty habit, and it's very hard to break. That's why you gotta check out our new sponsor, Fume. Fume is a natural inhaler designed for a better, safer, and
Glory,
natural way to
wealth,
quit
and a
cigarettes.
place in the
It's a
history.
no smoke,
All of
no
these will
vape,
be
and no
ours when we are
nicotine
united as
replacement
friends.
for the hand-to-mouth habit of smoking. Fume handcrafts wooden inhalers and uses
Hermes
cores
would
infused
surely
with
bless
plant
you if
oil
trade
studied
between our
to
peoples
curb
was
cravings.
allowed.
They have flavors
Do
like
not
peppermint
annoy
and
the
conker
gods.
with minty notes to simulate menthol cigarettes, and other flavors like cozy chai and lemon berry bliss for a sweeter experience. They're 100% natural, no harmful chemicals, no artificial flavors, and absolutely no nicotine.
Greetings, honored
I don't
guest.
smoke,
I
but I
serve
was
as my
able to
people.
share Fume with my Aunt Paulette, and she
Athena
was
give
blown
you
away
wisdom
by
so that
how
you may
much it
speak well.
helped with the cravings. Quitting is tough, but Fume really can help with thousands of 5-star reviews. Guys, give it a try. Head to breathefume.com/chael. Use the promo code chael to save 10% off your entire order. That's 10% off your entire order when you go to breathefume.com/chael. Make sure you use the promo code chael. Patty the Batty. Look, guys, Patty and the wait has to stop. It's got to come to a screeching stop. And the only one that can stop it is Patty. For some reason, this is interesting to reporters, right? That was a real story when Patty went from 155 pounds to 200 pounds. That was a real story because he did it in like 6 days and he took cameras around with it and they showed everything that he ate. It's got to stop. First off, it's not interesting. And Patty the Fatty doesn't make you a clever guy, by the way. And for Patty to continue to be painted by the same... I read an article today, but I've read one every single week since the first piece came out about how Patty likes to eat, not show up to practice, and take his eye off the ball for a couple of weeks after a fight. It was interesting then. It's not now. It's got to stop. There's too many interesting things for Patty. There's too many. Where does he go? Who is he going to fight? What's going to be next? Are we doing the Dana plan? We're bringing him back, bringing him out to the East, put him in Boston, put him in MSG, take him to Vegas, move him over to pay-per-view. Like, there's too many interesting things. The fact that none of the top guys call him out, none of them. Patty's talking about, I can't get in there with ranked opponents. Ranked opponents aren't trying to get in there with Patty. And Patty hasn't fully served himself. For Patty to come out and say a name would be helpful. Either way, the Patty and the weight has got to stop. It makes him look foolish. It really does. Eventually, that's going to bite you in the ass. And now people are going to say, and they're going to explain it. He wasn't disciplined. He eats too many donuts. It's just weird. The whole thing is weird. It's very nerdy. What a guy eats, or if he likes jelly donuts, it's just a weird thing to talk about. And you'll do that when you have nothing else. But when you're as interesting of a guy, when you're a character with so much substance, when you have the potential in the future and the projections of Patty the Batty, get it over there. Get the topic over there. Quit telling people what you eat. He wants to know what you weigh. Ask him what he weighs. It's one of those. Stop. There's nothing interesting about this. It's actually quite silly. Now, Patty does play along with it. That's what I'm encouraging to stop. Stop answering these questions. Stop playing along. What a guy weighs is not interesting, and it never has been in the history of time. You've never seen a TV show, and now let me show you what this guy weighs. Shut up. If you weren't interested and it's all you've got and it's all people will talk, okay, fine. But if you get some nerd or reporter that thinks that it's interesting that you bumped up a few kilos, like I'm really encouraging you. You've got to stop this. Who you're going to fight next, why you're going to fight him, why it matters. Patty came out and he was talking about it. He was just open. Patty's always open when he asks us. I encourage him to not. I encourage him, shove it up your ass. It's not interesting. Ask me something about fighting. It's my encouragement. I don't know if I'll get my way. But when Patty got asked about this, he said, yeah, you know, my weight goes. I like to let it go. He called it chub rub. I like to have some chub rub in between fights. Okay, I can live with that. My coach, Clayton Heyer, thought that you have to gain weight after a fight. He wanted to see your first day into training camp heavy. So he wanted to have something to work with that he could actually see as you start to get in shape and you start to get more fit. He liked that. So I don't turn on Patty, but Patty did make one statement, and he said, I realize that's not a game, the yo-yo, that's not a game that I can continue to play. I realize it doesn't have longevity. And that was good. I was happy to hear Patty say that. And he said, once I start fighting ranked guys, I will stop doing that. That part bothered me. That part was where the immaturity's coming in. Nothing in life works out that way, right? I'll start paying taxes once I start making more money, right? It's one of those things. I'll quit drinking after this weekend's party. That never works. If there is something that Patty has identified, Patty thinks him gaining weight, him coming down, he's got the Clayton Heyer's approach. Okay, we're all done here. But that's not what he said. He said that he does believe that it's a bad thing. And that when the time is right, he'll stop doing it. Is Patty a hard fight? Can we agree with that? If Patty was watching this, I'll just ask him about himself. Patty, are you a hard fight? He's going to say, yeah, I'm a hard fight. Okay, Patty, are you ranked? No. Okay. So now we've really successfully achieved a goal of proving that your ranking versus your difficulty are not the same thing. What do you want from these top-ranked guys? You want an opportunity is what you want, but for some reason we all buy into the idea that if you're a top-ranked guy, you can just stay in your little elitist club. The top 5 guys fight number 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. What about the other guys? How do they get up there? How do they get up there if we're going to accept that as a community? We can't accept it. Not to mention, it's not true. I don't think Mark Madsen is ranked. Bo Nickel is not ranked. Until this time last year, Hazmat Chimaev was not ranked. We got to have the rankings. But I remember where I was the day that it came out. It was 2012 when I was in what we call the green room, the avocado room at Fox. We were happy it came out, and we at Fox had made a big push to get rankings because we knew as talking heads, we knew as commentators that we now have a jumping off point. We have something for controversy because anytime people are judging people, it's not going to be fair. Anytime something isn't fair, it creates controversy, and controversy creates one thing, which is cash. We were happy. It was never meant to be a way for fighters to hide out, for fighters to avoid doing something. It's not highly publicized. Sports Illustrated has never even listed our rank. They've listed it for every sport there is. They haven't listed ours. But the fighters ended up getting these rankings. They knew where to go. They knew what .com, and then somehow it meant something to them. There's never been a sponsor, just so you understand, where you get paid more money if you have a ranking. There's never been a pay-per-view where you get a higher participation point because when I tell you the rankings don't matter, I want that to be an absolute. It's not. It's a good place to start. I want it to be an absolute. I want it to be an absolute because the fighters have corrupted it. It was never meant to be an ability to get out of things. Now Patty's talking about, I'm going to eat donuts because I don't have a guy that's got a number next to it. You know the guy got the number next to his name? Somebody or some group of bodies who have never been named and never will at 9 a.m. on Tuesday morning at an undisclosed location choose. Does that sound like anything that you would want to base your life around? Does that sound like anything that you would ever want to count on? Does that sound like anything that you should take as official or serious? It's an interesting question. When I grew up, football through college was done something called the BCS, but the BCS was a computer program. And it had an algorithm that nobody fully understood. And you'd have, was it Auburn or Tulane? It was some university that you hadn't heard of a whole bunch, but boy, they've been undefeated for like 3 years. Now, they were never national champions. They weren't selling their t-shirts. It was a school that not only had I not heard of them, I can't produce the name. Was it Tulane? Do you guys remember this? Is there even a school called Tulane? A school called Auburn? They went years undefeated. Years. Like 4 out of 6 years. They never won a national championship. Whatever it was within the algorithm, teams that did lose would be champion, while these guys were left out because they didn't understand the algorithm. It had to do with who you played. Had to do where they were ranked the day that you played. It had to do with the scores that you have. Nobody could explain it to you because it was a bunch of garbage. Then one day the computer gets beat and they put 2 teams out. We have all agreed we're going to give a national championship, tens of millions of dollars, to whatever university a program kicks out. The program had a jam and they put 2 names out. It was Nebraska and somebody else, co-champions. Doesn't work. That is a term that is exclusive, mutually exclusive. You cannot coincide with co-champions. It's an oxymoron. I happen to be in Nebraska. It's the only reason I remember this. It's the only reason I know the year, 1998. Nebraska lit up. The celebrations were in the street. I was out there with my wrestling team. We had one heck of a good time just being part of the celebration that Nebraska was having. Now, that was going on somewhere else in the country, too, because somebody else was also the national champion. That is garbage. That is rotten garbage to the highest of levels. They accepted it. Stunningly. And so did all of the other teams, including the undefeated Tulane, whatever. They all accepted it. That's silly and that's laughable, but now we have guys doing that with an MMA. Patty is going to control his diet based on a ranking put out by people or persons unnamed in an undisclosed location at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on Tuesday mornings. That's weird and that needs to stop.
Mila Kunis will shock you with these 4 things she says about God. Firstly, the Bible is full of great stories.
What do you think about the theme of the Bible? Because it's a very itchy theme for several people. You know?
I'm not religious, and I was okay with it. I mean, I don't think the theme is the Bible. I think it's just about faith and hope, and you know, if looked at the right way, that is what the Bible. The Bible is just a lot of stories that they're supposed to make you a better person and inspire you. It's when you start overanalyzing it is when there's problems happen. But if you truly read the Bible, it's just a lot of really great stories.
This might surprise you, but I actually agree with Mila Kunis. I believe that there are a lot of people in the world right now who are overanalyzing the Bible. You see, God made the Bible, made the scriptures so simple that even a small child could understand it. But hey now, I do disagree with Mila Kunis on this point. The Bible is not just full of a load of great stories, it's full of a load of great true stories. You see, my experience from speaking to people for the last decade on the street has been this. People will believe anything but the truth. Listen to this. For the time will come when people will not put up with sound doctrine. Instead, to suit their own desires, they will gather round them a great number of teachers to say what their itching ears want to hear. They will turn their ears from the truth and turn aside to myths. If you're not a Christian, Can I ask you this question? Do you feel that Christians like myself are constantly preaching to you our message? Well, if you believe that, may I gently just say this: it's not just Christians who are preaching a message, non-Christians also preach their message. Oprah Winfrey, what's her message? The universe will save you. Elon Musk, what's his message? Technology will save you. Jeff Bezos, what's his message? Money will save you. What's Richard Dawkins' message? Science will save you. Greta Thunberg, Mother Nature will save you. Beyonce, music will save you. Kevin Hart, laughter will save you. Everyone's got a message. And yet, when we say our message is that Jesus Christ on the cross died for sinners, that's the only hope we have, how do the people of the world respond? They say, "Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? How can a man, a carpenter, 2,000 years ago, bleeding there, dying on a cross, how can that save anyone?" And yet the Bible says everything hinges on that moment when Jesus Christ cried out, "It is finished. I've paid the price for sinners." And if you think that the cross of Christ doesn't make any sense, did you know this? You're actually described in my Bible. For the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved, it is the power of God. Okay, number 3, life is fleeting.
But I think, would you ever go to graveyards and think, oh, life is so fleeting? And you should, like...
I guess so.
Hey...
I have talked to wise
women. Do you ever think about death? Like, what do you think happens after you die?
You die.
Yeah, well, I know you die. You don't die again.
Stop breathing.
Well, yeah, I know the physical, but what about the metaphysical? What do you think happens to your thoughts and your
Do you believe in God?
A number of years ago, I was sat in my mother's garden and we started talking about age. And I remember, I'll never forget it, she looked at me very solemnly and said, "You know, Joe, I blinked and I was 50. I wonder if there's anyone watching this video now who can say those same words. The Bible says, "As for man, his days are like grass. As a flower of the field, so he flourishes. For the wind passeth over it, and it is gone, and its place remembers it no more." Life is so brief. Today we have strength, but tomorrow we'll be frail. And when we look in the mirror every single day, we're reminded that we're decaying, that we're not getting any younger, and life is running on faster and faster. Can you think of any sports star that's able to play on into their 40s, their 50s? No, their best years are their 20s and 30s. And then when they've done everything they can for their team, they're discarded and usually quickly forgotten. Many men and women pour all they can into the corporation or the company they work for. And then when they reach 50, 60, there becomes a great pressure for them to retire because they cannot keep up with the fast pace of this ever-changing world. My dear friend, you do not need me to tell you that you're fragile. And in 100 years' time, every single one of us will likely be forgotten. But if we put our trust in the Lord Jesus Christ, if we lead others to Him, the Bible says we will shine like the stars forever and ever. Can I ask you, have you committed your very brief life to the eternal God of this universe? But hey now, did anyone else notice that when Craig Ferguson, the interviewer, when he really pressed her with this question, what happens after you die? Did you notice what Mila Kunis did? She changed the subject. What did she say? Do you believe in God? Now, I could be really wrong about this, but I do wonder, did she use that particular question because on her mind she was wondering, well, yes, what does happen after I die? If God is real, then I'm going to face Him. And if I've rejected His Son, then what these Christians seem to teach means that I'm in big trouble. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I do believe that every man, every woman has a conscience, and we like to try and suppress our conscience. We either like to make God very, very small, very insignificant, this nice old grandfather in the sky, or we like to dissipate God completely and say He doesn't exist at all. Because if we get rid of God, we then get rid of our accountability, and that means that there's no eternal judge who we'll face when we die. I mean, think about this. If you're a bank robber, would you buy a house next door to the chief constable of your town? Of course you wouldn't, because you get found out. And likewise, the sinner who has not yet put their trust in the Lord Jesus Christ, They want to say, I want to run as far away from this police officer. I want to run far away from this judge because I don't want to get caught. In fact, some go as far to say the police officer doesn't even exist. That brings us on to number 2, the second coming of Christ.
Do you believe in God?
Yeah, I think I do. What about you?
I don't know.
I think I don't know is a better answer.
I don't know. I can honestly say I don't know.
Yeah.
I think I believe in something. I don't think that we are the center of the universe.
No, I don't think that.
I can't tell you about the second coming of Christ or Jesus. All that I don't know.
You don't know anything about that.
But maybe there's something out there. There has to be.
I think that...
But I don't know if you ascend up or down. I don't know if I believe in, like, you go up in the clouds if you go to heaven, or you go down, you know. That I don't believe.
I am thinking wishfully here, but if I had the privilege of standing next to Mila Kunis and Craig Ferguson, I'd probably say something like this. Mila, it's very simple. I know the film that you were in called The Black Swan, which won many awards. Well, just like every swan starts out as an ugly duckling, the message of the Bible is pretty similar. You see, every single one of us is an ugly duckling, but the Lord Jesus Christ can turn us into a beautiful swan. Here's how it works. It doesn't matter how attractive you are on the outside. I know, Mila Kunis, you've won many awards for being the most beautiful woman in the world. And Craig Ferguson, I know many women think you're a silver fox. But it doesn't matter what we look like on the outside. The Bible tells us inside we are ugly. There's an ugliness that no one else sees but God. We all tell lies. We all have wicked, cruel thoughts about people. We stab people in the back. We have fits of rage. We do shameful things in secret and have wicked thoughts that no one else knows about. And this ugliness that I'm talking about, the Bible calls it sin. And on the cross, our ugliness, the weight of that ugliness that every single person has inside of them, was placed on Jesus Christ. And Jesus died the most hideous death. So hideous that I believe if we saw him, many of us wouldn't be able to look at his body for more than a few seconds. His beard was plucked out. He had a crown of thorns smashed into his skull. He had nails driven through his hands and his feet. He had a spear through his side. He was covered in dust, blood and spittle. And there, the most loveliest person who ever walked on this earth died the most cruel death. But even all of that ugliness of the crucifixion did not compare to the spiritual suffering where God the Father poured out all of his wrath. He put the weight of our sin on Jesus and crushed Christ there so that we might be forgiven. So any man, any woman who somehow expresses this desire, this thankfulness that you died for me, Jesus, thank you, have mercy on me. It doesn't matter what words you say, it's the heart that matters. If anyone is willing to do that, well then God can take that sinner and turn them into a swan, if you like. He can make them beautiful because Christ takes our ugliness but then gives us his beauty. He takes our sin, the rags of our sin, and wears it on the cross, and he gives us his beautiful cloak of righteousness, his loveliness, his perfect track record, and says, there you are, that's my gift to you if you're willing to receive it. A number of years ago there was an aristocratic gentleman, a man called Sir Roger Bolton, and one day he went to a fair in a place called Colchester in the south of England, and he was really enjoying himself, you know, at a fair. He was eating lovely food, he was watching the jugglers, the clowns, having a great time, and then he heard the town clock, and a bit like a child would do, he counted the amount of chimes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And as he's sort of standing there thinking, am I going crazy? He sees another man who's just behind him and he says, excuse me, sir, did you hear that too? Did you hear that clock chime 13 times? And the little man said, yes, I heard it too. I thought I was going crazy too. And Sir Roger Bolton, he didn't think much more of it, but he just wrote it down in his diary. Today in Colchester, the clock chimed 13 times. Anyway, away he went, and he went home, and a couple of months later, he's lying in his bed, and he hears this voice, so loud, so clear, and it says this, go to York, go to York. And he thinks, what's that all about? This is ridiculous, I'm hearing voices in the night. Anyway, he goes back to sleep, and the next morning, he cannot get this voice out of his head. Go to York, go to York. So he says to his men, come on, harness the horses, I better go to York. A couple of days later, there he arrives in York, and as he gets there, he sees outside of the courthouse there's a big crowd of people. So he pulls someone aside from the crowd and he says, "Excuse me, what's going on? What's all the commotion?" And the man says, "Oh, haven't you heard the news? There's a big trial going on, a murder trial, and today is the last day and we all want to know what the outcome is." So Sir Roger Bolter, he follows the people into the courtroom, and then he hears this very authoritative voice say this: "Do you have anything else to say for yourself before I pronounce you guilty?" "Your Honour, I am not guilty. I was more than 100 miles from York. I was in Colchester and I stood there and there was a man next to me and we both heard a clock chime 13 times. If only he was here now, he would prove that I am innocent." And Sir Roger Bolter's eyes lit up and he screamed at the top of his voice, "I am that man. Now I know why I was supposed to come to York. Here, look, I wrote it in my diary. The man is telling the truth. He really was there." And so the judge looked at the diary and there was a bit of whispering, and then the judge said, "Very well, innocent." Anyway, the little man and Sir Roger Bolter walked out of the courtroom together, and the little man looked up at Sir Roger Bolter and he said, "You know, there's not a man in all the world who could save me but you. There's not a man in all the world who could save me but you. My dear friend, there's not a man in all the world who can save you but the Lord Jesus Christ. And I beg you today, come to him. He loves you, he wants to save you, and he died on a cross, going to great lengths so that you might be forgiven. Don't put it off a day longer and come to him right now." And the last thing that Mila Kunis and Craig Ferguson said about God is that God is too big for me.
I have a hard time believing that if someone's big enough to create the entire universe, he'd be concerned about what food you ate and what day.
Yeah.
That's not really a big picture guy.
I wouldn't think so. I think he'd have bigger things to worry about.
Yeah.
I believe one of the greatest tragedies in the world is that when we believe the lie that the devil tells us that God is too big, he's too distant to care about our worries. That is so untrue. The Bible says that we are to cast all of our cares on him, for he cares for you. God cares about your needs. You might think it's small, you might think it's insignificant, but the Bible teaches us that God leans down, he inclines his ear to listen to the cries of his children. But you might be saying, "Joe, I've been crying out to God for years and he's not answering my prayers." Well, there might be a reason for that. There might be a reason that your prayers are getting blocked from heaven. If you want to find out the reason for that, please listen to this message right now. And if you haven't yet subscribed, please do. I'd love the privilege of being able to continue preaching the Bible to people like you, because I'm just a beggar showing other beggars where to find bread. God bless you all and thank you for watching.
I feel like that's the most unfair way to compete because it's not about winning.
What's it about?
With your friends. I feel like that's the most unfair way to compete because it's not about winning.
We caught another one. This video is brought to you by The Officer Tatum Store. The Officer Tatum Store, ladies and gentlemen, under $10 for a shirt, under $15 for hoodies. The tab is at the top of my store. All you gotta do is hit the link. Less than $10 for shirts, less than $14 or $15 for hoodies. They're going out. We're selling them out. We're never bringing them back. Take advantage of it now. We're getting our winter stuff in. So make sure if you want a shirt for less than $10 and hoodies for less than $15, click the link at the top of my store. Like and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell to get notifications anytime I go live and make a video. Make sure you still subscribe to like this video, comment on this video, share this video. Let's get into this. Ladies and gentlemen, we caught another one. Y'all remember the other video where we had the mama who was on the live stream thinking it's cute to put her kids up there, and the kid snitched on her and said, "Mama, you make us be a part of the LGBT." Here's another one. She got a little boy dressing like a girl. And then they do an interview. For whatever reason, I don't know why the news media want to perpetuate mental illness and child abuse and grooming. However, they did it anyway. But I want you to watch this interview segment very closely. And I want you to watch the mouth of the mom during the interview. She's literally rehearsing the things that is coming out of her daughter's mouth
Why? Because she probably coached her to say what she said on the television. Don't listen to me, roll the clip.
Gender, it's not about racking up victories.
I don't want to win any trophies for it, though. I feel like that's the most unfair way to compete because it's not about winning.
What's it about?
Having fun with your friends for it, though. I feel like that's the most unfair way to compete because it's not about winning.
You sure about that? Kieran seems undeterred, with a message now about her journey.
Never stop being you. That's it.
Never stop being you.
There's so many kids that don't even have the opportunity to express who they really are. We are acknowledging more people as who they are than taking something away from somebody else.
Have you ever wondered why the daddy's never in these videos? Think about it. I want y'all to think about it. Think about this for a minute. You look at the video of the other grooming situation where she got caught on the live stream. Where's the daddy at? Then you see the clip of this. The boy is dressing like a girl. She's literally lip rehearsing the things that the daughter is saying. That must mean they rehearsed it and she's making sure she said exactly what she's supposed to say on television. I'm calling the she. That's a boy. Where's the daddy at? He's not in any of the interviews. They're not sitting down and talking to him. It's beyond me. These people keep getting caught. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not organic. This is not natural. These kids are not coming to these conclusions by themselves. These are deranged, sick parents who want to vicariously live this fetish through their children. I'm convinced. You are welcome. If my son would have gone on TV and have a statement, there's no way in the world we're rehearsing exactly what he's supposed to say, especially when it's something that a kid has no real fundamental knowledge of. A kid don't understand about gender and all this, and I'm a trans and all this stuff. They don't understand. And if you look at any article of any substance, most of these kids grow out of this stuff post-pubescent, right? Pre-pubescent, they doing all kind of, when them hormones kick in, they don't want to be trans no more. They fall in love with women once again. They fall in love with being a woman or being a man, whatever they were born to be. I'll say it like that. I almost said assigned gender. The infiltration of the stupidity is beyond me. But I just wanted to throw that out there. Here's another situation. Every time I see them, I'm gonna bring it to your attention. This lady is coaching her daughter or her son to be a daughter, and the father ain't nowhere to be found. You sorry, a spineless, I want to say it, but I can't say it because I'm a Christian. You sorry, S.O., you know what? You have no business being a father. If you can't stand up and say this is not right, and you out here wearing the dresses in the family, you should be wearing the pants. Matter of fact, the woman haircut look like she the daddy. These people are crazy. Anyway, like and subscribe to the channel. Make sure you visit the Alsa Tatum store. Less than $10 for shirts, less than $15 for hoodies. Go on and get it now, because when they gone, and people are buying them up like hot cakes. We want to get our new stuff in there, and y'all can have the rest of the stuff. And I know you love it, especially because we're going through a recession and all this other stuff. You ain't got a lot of money to spare. We'll give it to you at a discounted rate. I love you guys. See you on the next one. I'm out.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. Happy Monday. We've had a few days to reflect on it and have concluded that no honest person could believe that the raid on Donald Trump's home last week was a legitimate act of law enforcement. It was not. Even the Biden administration didn't really bother to pretend otherwise. The official explanations that we have heard for the raid make no sense at all. It doesn't matter how forcefully they are repeated by the media, they're nonsensical. In case you've forgotten what they are, here's the very first explanation they gave us.
Why did this guy have these ultra-classified documents in the basement of Mar-a-Lago, unsecured, where they could be presumably broken in on or stolen or photographed and given to hostile foreign powers or conceivably even terrorists?
Are you listening to this? So it's not just classified documents in the basement of Mar-a-Lago, but according to Michael Beschloss, the pet historian of the half-wits who run our country, these are ultra-classified documents, the most classified kind, just sitting there helpless in boxes like maidens in bikinis waiting to be photographed by terrorists. You just imagine Al-Qaeda taking selfies with these documents, one after the other relentlessly, repulsive and terrifying. Is it true? At this point, no one has provided proof that it is true, not that august historians like Michael Beschloss wait around for actual evidence before pronouncing final judgment on cable news shows. They just go ahead. But for the sake of argument on our show, we're going to say that it is in fact true, that Donald Trump did in fact have boxes of classified documents sitting in his cell. Let's say that's true. What would it mean? Well, what it means depends in part on what the documents were. Did those documents contain meaningful information? Should they have been classified in the first place? Is there a good reason the rest of us should not have been allowed to see those documents? Now, you never hear those questions asked in public, but anyone who lives in Washington knows perfectly well they should be asked in public a lot. Because in Washington, virtually anything can qualify as an official state secret, and often does. In 2011, to name one of many examples, the CIA finally declassified a trove of documents from the First World War. These documents dated back to 1917, almost 100 years before. One of these documents, the most ultra-secret of them, contained a recipe for disappearing ink. Now, why would federal bureaucrats spend an entire century hiding an outdated recipe for ink that you can buy legally in any magic store for your fifth grader? Good question. No one asked it. Instead, then CIA Director Leon Panetta issued a press release bragging about how he was giving the secret ink recipe to a grateful public. Quote, "These documents remained classified for nearly a century until recent advancements in technology made it possible to release them," Panetta wrote. "When historical information is no longer sensitive, we take seriously our responsibility to share it with the American people." Now, there's no hint whatsoever that Panetta was joking when he wrote that. "You're welcome, America. Here's your century-old ink recipe." Again, this was in 2011, so think it through. You had to wonder, what recent technological advancements was Leon Panetta talking about in the press release? And just how recent were they? Was Panetta actually saying that CIA spies were still communicating in World War I era disappearing ink as of, say, 2010? Or even as of 1950? Please. It was bizarre. Of course, it was another lie from the people in charge. Here's the truth. The documents have been classified for 100 years, not because disappearing ink was any sort of national security secret. They've been classified because the government's default position in every case is that you have no right to see anything ever. It is their information. It is not yours. Yours the citizen. Yours the taxpayer. Shut up and pay for it all. To this day, there are large amounts of classified information remaining from World War II. These are documents written 80 years ago by people whose grandchildren are now old.
Understood.
But you still can't see it. You don't have the clearances. Sorry. So when they tell you that Donald Trump had classified documents in his basement, those materials could be literally anything. But once again, for the sake of argument, we're going to stipulate that Trump did have possession of documents that were classified for some good reason. Documents that, for example, we legitimately would not want the Chinese government to see. If that is true, would it justify what happened? Would it justify sending a large team of federal agents to shut down the entire southern tip of Palm Beach to raid Mar-a-Lago on a weekend? No, it wouldn't. So one of the laws they're telling you that Trump broke doesn't even have criminal penalties attached to it because it's not serious enough. Federal paramilitaries don't show up at your house when you violate the Presidential Records Act. And in fact, as we later learned, the actual warrant for the raid, which was signed by an openly partisan judge who, because he couldn't make any of this up if he tried, once represented Jeffrey Epstein's side in the famous underage sex case, that judge allowed the FBI to seize virtually every piece of paper in Donald Trump's house, whether or not it had ever been classified. They took Roger Stone's clemency order, for example. That had been on the front page of the Washington Post, so it was therefore probably not a secret. Apparently, the feds even walked off with Donald Trump's passports, preventing him from leaving the country. So whatever else this raid was not about the Presidential Records Act. That explanation is absurd. It's almost as ridiculous as the claim that the White House knew nothing about the raid before it happened. Right. Please. If they're going to lie to us, they ought to try a little harder. So what was this raid about? Well, we're keeping track, so here's the second explanation.
Now with Donald Trump, suddenly, when we're talking about the possibility of nuclear weapons, classified documents of the highest classified status being stolen from the White House and taken to Mar-a-Lago?
Just a reminder of why the Justice Department might be a little bit concerned about nuclear secrets knocking around Mar-a-Lago.
2 words for you, my friend. 2 words. Nuclear secrets.
What? Nuclear secrets? Nuclear secrets are the highest classified status. Ultra secret nuclear secrets. Donald Trump stole those. Ladies and gentlemen, America is in danger tonight. That was their new explanation. Now, that revised storyline was leaked anonymously to an obedient press corps, which you just saw, repeating every word like it was verifiable fact. Yet once again, no one even bothered to explain what these nuclear secrets might be. What's a nuclear secret exactly? And what did Trump plan to do with them? Did he plan to defect to Moscow? Give the launch codes to Vladimir Putin? Start his own rogue state in the Bahamas? Nobody said. But that didn't stop former CIA Director Michael Hayden from suggesting that Donald Trump should be executed, fried to death in the electric chair for committing these crimes, whatever these crimes were. We still don't know. There weren't a lot of facts floating around. There still aren't. But there was a reason for that. They couldn't tell you the whole story. They couldn't release all the documents because that would jeopardize American national security. So instead, you're just going to have to trust them. And of course, you're going to have to listen to their outrage. There was a lot of that. There was endless huffing on television on something called the rule of law, and how absolutely no one is above that. No one, not even a former president. We're informed of this by the same people who paid rioters to burn down our cities, the ones who eliminated bail, the ones who encouraged tens of millions of foreign nationals to ignore our federal immigration statutes and move to our country permanently at public expense as a reward for breaking our laws. But keep in mind, no one is above the law. That was definitely the word from Joe Scarborough, a man who was accused of committing murder while serving as a member of Congress, yet somehow moved seamlessly to the MSNBC lineup without being charged or even investigated. No one is above the law! Remember that. So there was an awful lot of posturing in the days after the raid, but none of it was very effective because, again, it didn't make sense. Even propaganda has to add up. 2 + 2 = 9 doesn't convince anybody. Nuclear secrets? If the Biden administration really believed that, if they really thought Donald Trump possessed documents that posed an imminent danger to American national security, then you have to wonder, why'd they wait a year and a half to do anything about it? Why did they wait till 90 days before a midterm election? In elections that polls suggest they will lose, it doesn't make... Well, wait, actually it does make sense. In fact, the question answers itself. Despite superficial appearances, the raid on Mar-a-Lago was not an act of law enforcement. It was the opposite of that. It was an attack on the military. It was a power grab. As Matt Booth put it recently in American Greatness, the raid on Trump's home, quote, was exactly what it looks like, a show of force against the opposition leader by the head of state and his personal bodyguard. If this happened in any other country, it would immediately be denounced as the act of a dictator, end quote. That's true, but it's hard to hear those words anyway. As an American, you don't want to believe it, and yet here are the essential facts. The same week the Biden White House announced that Joe Biden will definitely seek a second term as president, the same week, the Biden Justice Department launched an armed raid against Biden's main rival in that same presidential election. That's what happened. If the New York Times told you something like that was going on in Chad or the Gambia, what would your reaction be? You'd probably say to yourself, thank God I don't live in a place like that. A country where politicians used armed men to cling to power. Oh, but you do live in a country like that. You do. The evidence is all around us. We just don't want to see it. A week to the day after Joe Biden was inaugurated, the FBI arrested a 31-year-old man from Vermont called Douglas Mackey. According to the subsequent DOJ press release, Mackey had committed an extremely serious crime. Like Vladimir Putin, he had conspired to subvert the 2016 presidential election. In a tweet, Mackey had suggested, but not explicitly said, but suggested, that it was possible to vote for Hillary Clinton by text message. This act, proclaimed acting U.S. Attorney Seth Ducharme, was a grave felony, a felony punishable by 10 years in prison. Mackey's tweet, Ducharme said, amounted to, quote, misinformation to defraud citizens of their right to vote. Assistant FBI Director William Sweeney confirmed that Douglas Mackey had in fact committed, quote, vote theft. So, as befitting a criminal of his magnitude, Mackey was handcuffed and hauled before a federal judge in Florida called Bruce Reinhardt. This turns out the same magistrate who authorized last week's raid on Mar-a-Lago. Then Mackey was hauled off to jail. Now, Mackey's arrest seemed like a significant story, but at the time, media coverage was relatively scant and almost uniformly credulous. The reporters who covered it simply clipped quotes from the DOJ press release and moved on to something else. Why? Well, the New York Times set the tone early by describing Mackey as, quote, a far-right Twitter troll. Far-right Twitter troll is not a technical term. In fact, it has no agreed-upon meaning of any kind. It is slang. Slang is something that serious newspapers never include in news stories. But in this case, the term far-right Twitter troll had a use. It sent an unmistakable message to the country, and in particular to the rest of the media. And it was this: Douglas Mackey is a dangerous person with unspeakably ugly views. And so he was. There was no consideration of the merits of the government's case against Douglas Mackey, but there should have been, because the case was absurd. If Mackey's tweets were so threatening to our system of government toward democracy, then why did the Department of Justice wait more than 4 years until the week Donald Trump left office to charge him? And if Mackey actually stole the votes of American citizens, as the FBI repeatedly alleged that he did, whose votes were stolen? Who exactly were the victims of Douglas Mackey's crimes? The media never asked, the Biden administration never said. As of tonight, the Justice Department has never identified a single person who was prevented from voting or from doing anything else by what Douglas Mackey tweeted. Because there weren't any people. Those people didn't exist. Douglas Mackey was not a criminal mastermind running a conspiracy to commit voter fraud. Douglas Mackey was an internet prankster. His job was to think up funny memes on his laptop in his bedroom. That's what he did. Here's one of his memes on the screen. Hashtag draft our daughters, Mackey wrote, in what was very obviously a fake tweet from the Hillary Clinton campaign. They're ready to go to war for her. Are you? Pretty funny. Mackey was mocking Hillary Clinton. No one could miss that. He wasn't subverting elections. He was making fun of the candidate. And in fact, no one did miss that. Not a single person in America actually believed that Douglas Mackey's Twitter memes infringed on, quote, one of the most basic and sacred rights guaranteed by the Constitution, the right to vote. Absolutely no one believed that. No one could believe that because it's too stupid a claim to believe. And yet Nicholas McQuaid, who went to Columbia Law School and is now Joe Biden's assistant attorney general, made that claim anyway, verbatim, and did so with a straight face. Quote, Douglas Mackey, threat to democracy. So he faces 2 years in prison. The DOJ press release said that. 3 paragraphs later, the same press release inadvertently acknowledged what was actually there. In the run-up to the 2016 election, DOJ explained, Douglas Mackey had gained more influence on Twitter than either NBC News or, gasp, Stephen Colbert himself. Now, the criminal complaint against Douglas Mackey actually spells that out. You can read it for yourself. It's still online. The Biden administration argued that on Twitter, people liked Douglas Mackey more than they liked NBC News or Stephen Colbert. Now, that may not seem bad to you. It may seem fine, having grown up as you did in a country where people were allowed to choose what they read. But according to the government Joe Biden now runs, that's a felony. Now, you don't have to be a right-winger to find that terrifying. In a free country, you have an absolute right to say what you think in public, period. Doesn't matter who is offended by what you say. It doesn't matter if people consider your views ugly. Even if every person on the planet finds your opinions horrifying and beyond the pale, you still have the right to express them because you were born with that right. It's inherent. You cannot be sent to prison for your political views, ever. That is the core principle of the United States. That is the principle that Marines fought their way to the top of Mount Suribachi to protect. So whatever you think of his memes, Douglas Mackey's freedom of speech was very much worth defending. But virtually nobody defended it. Aside from a few brave and honorable exceptions, even so-called conservative media stayed silent as Douglas Mackey's life was destroyed by the Biden Justice Department. He's still in limbo, facing 10 years. Why? Well, because the New York Times had called him a far-right Twitter troll. No respectable person wanted to be anywhere near that. So the purge continued. Douglas Mackey may have been the first victim of the new authoritarianism, but he was hardly the last one. Over the last 18 months, virtually every significant figure in the orbit around Donald Trump has been swept up by Merrick Garland's Department of Justice. Their homes raided, their personal communications seized and leaked to the media. Some have been arrested and thrown in jail. Donald Trump's lawyers are the primary targets. Today, the DOJ subpoenaed Eric Hirschman. He represented Trump during the first impeachment. Hirschman never worked in the White House counsel's office. The Biden administration is going after him anyway because he gave legal advice to his client, Donald Trump. That used to be allowed. People used to be allowed to have lawyers and speak to them privately, but that's not allowed anymore. That's why the CIA seized attorney-client records from Mar-a-Lago. It's also why the DOJ is now directly targeting Trump's most prominent personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani. For years, the feds have been going after Giuliani's associates, including a man called George Dixon. Dixon was working on a documentary about Hunter Biden. Last year, the FBI raided his home in California. The feds also broke into Giuliani's own apartment, as well as his office in New York. Then the FBI targeted a Giuliani associate called Igor Fruman because he dug up evidence of misconduct by Joe Biden in Ukraine. They sent Fruman to prison. Then the FBI seized the phone of prominent conservative attorney Victoria Tenzing. She'd worked with Giuliani in 2020 to investigate election fraud. They raided her home. Today, the DOJ announced that Giuliani himself is a target of a federal investigation. Why exactly? Well, because like Tenzing and so many others who are under investigation or under arrest, Giuliani questioned the 2020 election outcome, in this case, in the state of Georgia. Really, questioning the election outcome in the state of Georgia. Isn't that something Stacey Abrams has made a career of doing? Yes. But Republicans no longer have that right. Not long ago, more than a dozen federal agents swooped in for a pre-dawn raid on former Trump official Jeff Clark. They left him on the street in his underwear for maximum humiliation. Then they seized John Eastman's phone. Eastman was also a Trump attorney. He was approached by 6 agents at a restaurant in New Mexico while leaving dinner with his wife. They patted him down and forced him to provide facial biometric data to unlock his phone. Then the DOJ tried the same thing with Steve Bannon's lawyer, Bob Costello, trying to force him to surrender his privileged phone and email records. We could go on and on and on.
We seek trade and prosperity for
all of this is illegal. It violates the First Amendment. It violates long-established attorney-client privilege. But it's happening right in front of us. A lot. The FBI shackled former Trump official Peter Navarro as he was boarding a flight at Reagan National Airport. He was handcuffed, denied food and water, refused permission to make a phone call to his lawyer. Then, because that wasn't terrifying enough, Biden's FBI went after a sitting congressman, perceived as too close to Trump. His name is Congressman Scott Perry. A day after the Mar-a-Lago raid, the feds seized Congressman Perry's phone while he was traveling with his family. They could have called his lawyer and set up something. They didn't bother. They just nabbed him in front of his family. And these are just the prominent victims of this crackdown on civil liberties being conducted by the Biden administration. Of course, in the wake of the January 6th election justice protests, more than 900 people have been arrested and charged with crimes arising from that day. 900, almost all of them nonviolent. Almost all of them with no previous criminal record. More than 50 of them have been sentenced to prison so far, including a woman with terminal cancer. Her crime? Walking around the Capitol building for a few minutes. And that's just the beginning. There are another 500 cases to go. In fact, the DOJ is getting another $34 million and another 130 more employees just to handle all those cases from January 6th, from the election justice protests, which is what they were. Now, superficially, all of this is about Donald Trump. And on some level, it is. Permanent Washington does not want Trump to run again. Of course, it's their greatest fear, and they're doing all he can to prevent it. It turns out democracy is too important to let voters choose their own president. But if you take 3 steps back and consider what's actually going on, you'll see that none of this is really about Donald Trump, the man. It's about power. And that means it's about crushing and humiliating anyone who gets in the way of people who want to retain power. And that means anyone. How about Alex Berenson? Alex Berenson is a novelist and former New York Times reporter. He's got an Ivy League degree, lives in the Northeast. In no way does Alex Berenson fit the profile of your average Trump voter. Certainly not the stereotype. In fact, it's hard to believe that he voted for Donald Trump. We don't know, and it doesn't matter. We do know that when Alex Berenson started to post fact-based challenges to the lies Joe Biden was telling about COVID and then the COVID vaccines, the White House commanded Twitter to silence Alex Berenson. And Twitter soon did that. And we're not speculating about what happened. There are written exchanges that prove what happened. We're going to talk to Alex Berenson in a minute about the details. But the point is, this is illegal. No American government is allowed to collude with private business to silence its critics. Period. That is an unambiguous violation of the First Amendment. It's also a violation, of course, of Alex Berenson's human rights. And yet somehow, this slipped beneath notice. The New York Times didn't write about it. Why would they? On some level, you understand, because what happened to Alex Berenson has happened to many, many, many critics of the Biden administration in the past year and a half. They have been censored. They have been silenced at the direction of the White House.
Your orders?
Think about what this means. These are acts of aggression and hostility aimed at Americans. No American president has ever done this. No American president has ever explicitly declared war on his own population. And yet for the Biden administration, it's a near weekly occurrence. Here's Joe Biden and his Attorney General Merrick Garland telling you that white supremacists, in other words, Trump voters, because that's what they mean when they say white supremacists, a term they've never defined, white supremacists, Trump voters, are the single greatest terror threat the United States faces.
In the FBI's view, the top domestic violent extremist threat comes from racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists, specifically those who advocated for the superiority of the white race.
According to the United States intelligence community, domestic terrorism from white supremacists is the most lethal terrorist threat in the homeland.
So not to be too literal, but this is on some level a news show, that's a lie. None of what you heard is true. There's not a single statistic or piece of credible research to support what Biden and his Attorney General just said. Again, all of it is a lie. The truth, as usual, is the opposite. These are the people who created the crime wave America is suffering under, and now they're blaming you for it. And for good measure, they're disarming you because you cannot be trusted with guns because you're too dangerous. And just in case you missed the theme here, they're hiring another 87,000 armed IRS agents just to make sure that you obey. Got it? Got it? Is it clear? Amazingly, some Republican leaders still don't get it, or pretend they don't get it. Here's Asa Hutchinson, still somehow the governor of Arkansas, in a holding pattern before he transitions to the Walmart board, assuring that the FBI is completely on the level.
The FBI is simply carrying out their responsibilities under the law, a lawful search warrant that a magistrate signed off on. And they didn't go in there with FBI raid jackets. They tried to constrain their behavior carrying out that warrant. So let's support law enforcement. Let's stand with them.
Well, the FBI is just simply carrying out their responsibilities. Of course they are. Come on, will you support law enforcement? There's nothing to see here. That's the line. And no doubt Asa Hutchinson and Mitch McConnell and Dan Crenshaw and the rest of them will be telling you the very same thing when the Biden Justice Department or some other state law enforcement agency under their influence finally does what you know they're going to do, which is indict Donald Trump. Obviously, they're going to do that.
You are welcome.
Who knows how? Maybe they'll produce surveillance video from Mar-a-Lago. Apparently, they've already subpoenaed that. We'll spend the next year talking about how it shows Trump mishandling classified information. Really?
Well
on the
met,
server.
friend.
Remember the endless Russia collusion hoax? We're in for a lot more of that. They'll scream about how Trump is a criminal. And if you express any support for him or any interest in retaining, I don't know, the rights of free speech and due process, you're a criminal too. In fact, you are the threat. You're the threat. And just mentioning that you disagree with what is happening is an attack on our government. That's their style. Just the other day, after signing off the Mar-a-Lago raid, your Attorney General, Merrick Garland, came on stage to whine about how actually he was the victim. He's the victim. Apparently, some people disagreed with the raid, so the FBI, the most heavily armed domestic law enforcement agency in the world, is now under threat from you.
No.
Right, you're the criminal. Our critics are in jail, but I got anonymous threats on Twitter. Poor me. Passive aggression is the defining characteristic of the left. If they started putting people in camps, NBC News would cheer them on and then attack you for complaining about it. How dare you?
Agree.
Violating our norms. We've always had camps.
Clear thinking in this matter. My
As if to
people
prove
will
it,
rejoice.
they prove it every day. But in the hours after the Mar-a-Lago raid, the usual jackals on Twitter began demanding that Donald Trump should release the warrant that justified the raid. If you're not guilty, you'll show it to us. That's what they said. So Trump did it. He gave the warrant to Breitbart News, which printed it. And then the second the Breitbart piece went up, the very same jackals started screaming about how right-wing extremists are putting the lives of FBI agents in danger, since those agents were named in the warrant, which is a public document. In other words, we're the victims here. We're the victims.
I came as a subject.
Always the same. Except this time, unfortunately, it could be a little different. Indicting Donald Trump is a very big step. Not simply because a lot of people like him and he's the former president, but because indicting him at this point would be to reveal that this entire thing, and by thing we mean our justice system, is just transparently political. It's just a means to an end, a means to power. And people know that at this point. They've watched it. They understand what's happening. Even people who don't like Donald Trump, even people who didn't vote for Donald Trump and don't want to vote for him in 2024, they know, and they can't unknow. And that means that we are at this point on the edge of something unprecedented and something awful. You could feel it. Even Donald Trump feels it. Maybe for the first time in his life, Donald Trump seems sincerely interested in lowering the temperature, not just for his own sake, but for the country. He said that. He's never said anything like that. Maybe he doesn't mean it, but when has he ever said that? Let's all calm down a little, he said the other day. This isn't good. Yeah, he's right. It's not good, and not just for him, for all of us. This could get very bad, very fast. And the Biden people know that perfectly well. They know what could happen if they continue down this path of using law enforcement to cling to power. But they don't care because they're facing a repudiation from voters and they're desperate and they'll do anything. But at what cost? Pray they pull back before it's too late.
Subscribe to the Fox News YouTube channel to catch our nightly opens, stories that are changing the world and changing your life. I'm Tucker Carlson tonight.
Woman, take care of your kid. This video is brought to you by The Officer Tatum Store. The Officer Tatum Store. Get the merch link in the description section. Fathers Matter merch is off the chain. People are selling out. We got Faith Not Fear as well. We got it on the mug. We have a Fathers Matter mug that's two-sided. See, this is one-sided. People say they want it on both sides. Fathers Matter mug is on both sides. Put in discount code GGY6. Get 20% off the entire store. Only for my people on the YouTube. Everybody else, y'all got to pay full price. But if you see this on YouTube, you get 20% off GGY6. Like and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell so you get notifications anytime I go live and make a video. Make sure you still subscribe to this channel. Like this video. Comment on this video. Share this video. Let's get into this. Lady, why these people? Listen. There's a trend going on here. There's a trend. Why is it that because you are part of the LGBTQ AARP community that you can't change, you can't raise your kids right? Raise your doggone kids right. Why is this little girl doing what I'm gonna show y'all she doing? Why they gotta be crazy? You can just represent your gender, whatever you want to call it, but you don't gotta be nutty. And you don't have to be letting your kids act like this. Don't listen to me. Watch this little kid.
Oh no, Stewie's having a tantrum. I'm here, sweetie. Ow! Screw you, you little turd! What's all that noise? Oh, do you want a hug from your big sister?
Man, look at her. I could have told you she looked like a blimp without ever seeing her. Nasty, dirty armpit having, stinky motor oil, fish, and chip smelling, dirty toenail having, chip fingernail polish, food stamp having, just nasty. They just don't build them like this is how they build them. I wonder which one comes first. You start looking like this and then you become a leftist, or you a leftist and then you start looking like this. Y'all tell me in the comment section which one comes first. I could have told you that her mama looked like this. Why I don't understand. Why can't a person be well, nice kept? You see she got the hair under there. Why can't she be normal, like a reasonable person, dressed nicely? Maybe they look good. Maybe she fine. Why can't she be fine and be out there acting like that? No, it's always the blue head crazy ones. You see her hair pink or something?
Your armies would surely
F-U-B.
find...
She said F-U and she used the B word. Then mama out there. Mama out there with a sandbag hanging right there. She got a water balloon hanging down there. I'm not trying to make fun of her, but listen, man, you shouldn't be doing this to your kid. Fair game. Now, look, let me say this. I'm not blaming the kids. This is how kids get brainwashed into being this. The mama is 100% responsible for this, what this little girl doing. They teach them to hate. They teach them intolerance. They fight intolerance with intolerance. That's what they do. They fight racism with racism. They fight hatred with more hatred. And I would even take it a step further. They're fighting the difference of opinion with racism. They're fighting a difference of opinion with hatred. And then they're projecting and saying you're the one that's hateful, but she's the one sticking her middle finger up and her mama's letting her do it. You can disagree with my lifestyle. That don't mean I gotta flip you off and be crazy. That's because they don't have a response to the things that they do. They don't like to be challenged, so their only recourse is to lash out. It's to scream at people, yell at people, cuss at people, wear crazy colors, paint their hair, and be crazy. They can't have a legitimate conversation. And I don't know which one, like I say, I don't know which one comes first. Or is it just these people that have the propensity to be crazy like this end up picking this political side? Or because they picked the political side, they didn't go down the drain? But you know, my son, if we went to a protest at a Planned Parenthood, my son wouldn't be sticking no middle finger up at nobody. You just disagree with what they're doing. You don't have to be mean and evil and hateful. You could just disagree. It's really that simple. If we were to go protest at a Hillary Clinton thing, which ain't nobody gonna be there but us, but if we decide to do it, what we gonna cuss out people and beat and throw rocks and stuff for? We're gonna argue your points. Your points are bad. Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, all of them are bad politicians. They just suck. You know it, I know it. You just don't like Trump tweets. Now he ain't even on Twitter no more. So now what your excuse is? But somebody need to take care of their kids better than to be doing this. They grow up and they become entitled fools. It's no different than slavery. It's no different than racism. You raise the kids to feel that way. They don't come out the womb thinking that black people are slaves. They don't come out the womb hating other people because of the color of their skin. It is taught, it's learned behavior from poor parenting. When you raise your children, you raise them to see the world as God sees the world, or as God would have you see the world. You teach them to love their neighbors as themselves. General! Give unto others as you will have them give to you. Treat people the way you want to be treated. We can go down the same list. Those things are the way you should read the world. We should not be viewed by the color of our skin, but we should be viewed as brothers and sisters in Christ. That's how you teach your children. When somebody wrong you, it ain't because you black. It's because that person is wrong. It doesn't matter what their excuse is. When somebody do you wrong, they done you wrong. No matter what their excuses are. You don't have to look in the mirror and feel like you're inferior because a person don't want to give you a job for whatever reason they choose. You don't have to always go to the default, oh, because I'm black. All you got to do is say, you know what? That person is a bad person. I'm going to do better. I'm going to go to another location. I'm going to find a better job. I'm going to work harder. I'm going to give them no excuses. It's really that simple. But you raise your kids to be crazy, and then they grow up and be the next maniac. Anyway, like, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you on the next one. I'm out.
Ben Shapiro. His wife is a doctor.
Oh, is your wife a doctor?
So the rumor is that she is.
My wife's a doctor.
Matt Walsh, the #1 LGBT children's book author in the country.
Johnny the Walrus is the #1 bestseller on Amazon's LGBTQ+ book list.
Jeremy Boring hates Harry's razors.
Stop giving your money to woke corporations who don't think you deserve their product. Give it to me instead.
Head over to IHateHarrys.com and pre-order your Founders Series razor and shaving cream set today.
Michael Knowles wrote a best-selling blank book.
You wrote the famously insightful book, Reasons to Vote for Democrats. I mean, it was the best page-turner I've ever read.
I had been researching the topic my entire life.
Candace Owens. I think she's friends with Cardi B.
Joe Biden, who has been hiding in his basement for the entire year, made an appearance to come out because he was going to do an interview with Cardi B. Do we have nothing better to offer?
Andrew Klavan is literate.
Andrew is the author of many novels, including True Crime, which was made into a movie starring Clint Eastwood.
Brett Cooper, the female version of Ben Shapiro.
LMAO, Brett Cooper does look like Ben Shapiro. She's like some lab-made conservative clone of Ben that was genetically altered to be a female. Brett Shapiro would have been too obvious, so they went with People ask me how often I get compared to Ben. It's every day.
And now, Jordan Peterson, a Canadian.
So I thought I would talk to you about the peculiar times that we seem to find ourselves in Canada.
At this point, the Daily Wire is like a real-life cinematic universe. But are these conservatives the heroes or the villains?
I go to Facebook on a daily basis. The posts with the most engagement are from Ben Shapiro, Dan Bongino, Candace Owens. It is right-wing content. It dwarfs progressive content. It dwarfs mainstream media content, which is actually should be the part that scares us the most, that Ben Shapiro's Daily Wire has more followers and engagement, many times more than the New York Times or CNN. That is a...
Let's take a look at each of these characters, and then we'll share our conclusion about them. Number 1, Ben Shapiro. If you don't know who Ben Shapiro is, you probably live under a rock because, according to the Babylon Bee, Shapiro is an amateur podcaster, insurance salesman,
let's talk about life insurance. So, it's pretty obvious at this point everybody needs life insurance,
and husband of a doctor. Shapiro is also a devout Orthodox Jew.
The reason I wear a yarmulke is for 2 reasons. One, there's a religious reason. Going all the way back to the Talmud, Jews have worn yarmulkes, they've covered their heads out of submission to God, and as a reminder that God is above us at all times. And the second reason is because, no, I'm not going anywhere, and anybody who has a problem with it can write off.
So, of course, this means Shapiro is certainly not a Christian. But at the same time, a lot of Christians seem to really like Shapiro.
We are so very excited about this gift that we have for this first episode. We're going to have one of our favorite people on. You know him. He really doesn't need much of an introduction for our audience. His name is Ben Shapiro.
What's going on here? Well, Shapiro ardently defends Christians, Christianity, and Christian ethics against a culture that hates these things.
I mean, it doesn't really matter. I mean, to my central argument, whether you're an agnostic or an atheist, the bottom line is that without the belief that there is a purpose to the universe, without a belief that there is a purpose to your life, without a belief that you have the capacity to make individual choices, it's very difficult to build a civilization. By difficult, I mean impossible.
Shapiro also had John MacArthur on his Sunday special.
Well, we are here on the Sunday special with the great John MacArthur, who's the president of the Masters University, and we're going to get into an enormous amount of his philosophy and work. We're going to get into religion and free will and politics, so many good things.
Shapiro is happy to publish articles that support pastors such as Voddie Baucham and John MacArthur. And Shapiro has a history of fearlessly fighting for various causes that Christians likewise fight for.
The left, however, thinks that states should be able to discriminate actively against religion. And really, they believe that the state should actively discriminate against religion. Today on The Ben Shapiro Show, we broadcast live from the March for Life and debunk the most common pro-choice arguments one by one. Today, the Biden administration finally put out their long-awaited OSHA rule from the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. They are promulgating a rule via an administrative agency that forces every company with over 100 employees to force their employees to either vaccinate or test or be fired. And we've already spent tens of thousands of dollars on our lawyers. We filed a lawsuit as of this morning. We are taking them to court. We'll fight this all the way to the Supreme Court if need be.
Number 2, Matt Walsh. Walsh is a beloved best-selling LGBT children's book author.
Matt Walsh, if you are not familiar with, posted a video 1 week ago reading his book, Johnny the Walrus, to a bunch of little kids.
Okay, so we're off to a rough start here.
And the protagonist of the documentary, What is a Woman?
What is a woman? Can you tell me that? Well, you're at the Women's March. You must have some idea. Please, if one person can tell me what a woman is.
You are not here for women. We ask you to leave.
Which critics on Rotten Tomatoes are raving about.
What score did it get from the critics? Well, NA, not applicable. There's no score. They just haven't reviewed it. None of them. There's one critic review.
Walsh is also a devout Catholic.
What are you doing to convert Ben Shapiro and Andrew Klavan?
Well, Michael and I both are constantly trying to indoctrinate him. It's tough with Ben, especially because he's a tough guy.
Just start placing miraculous medals around his office.
Yeah, we sprinkle him with holy water and that sort of thing. Yeah.
So, of course, like with Shapiro, Walsh certainly doesn't teach the biblical gospel of justification through faith alone.
Go to our Catholic friends. Listen to this. Council of Trent, Session 6, Canon 9. If anyone says that by faith alone the sinner is justified, so as to mean that nothing else is required to cooperate in order to obtain the grace of justification, let him be anathema. Let him be anathema. They do not preach the same gospel.
Walsh is deeply critical of the Reformation, which we see as one of the most important and necessary events in human history.
The church is fractured into a million pieces. Christians disagree about almost everything. Even if you dislike the Catholic Church, it seems odd for any Christian to gleefully celebrate Reformation Day. You're celebrating disunity and brokenness, like throwing a divorce party. No matter what branch of Christian you are, the proper attitude towards the Reformation is one of solemnness and sadness, even if you think it was necessary. It just makes no sense to celebrate the fact that there are 10,000 denominations.
Walsh also defends evolution, and the Earth being billions of years old.
They're starting with Genesis and their interpretation of it, and then trying to make the science fit. What's the more plausible explanation? That modern science is completely wrong, or that young Earth creationists are misinterpreting?
So we have a lot of disagreements with Walsh. At the same time, Walsh is popular among Christians. Why? Well, like Shapiro, Walsh fearlessly fights for causes that Christians also fight for.
Today on the Matt Walsh Show, Canada criminalized Christianity last week, and nobody seems to have noticed. I'm here today to talk about the battle over life, marriage, and gender. Argument number one, a woman has the right to choose. Answer, no, nobody has a universal right to choose. We all agree that some choices must be prohibited. The question is not if women should be able to choose generally, but if they should be able to choose to intentionally destroy innocent human life.
Walsh's documentary, What is a Woman, may be the best content the Daily Wire has produced so far.
Is it transphobic to tell the truth?
The interview's over. Just turn off the cameras.
Excuse me.
Well, they're fair. I just wanted to know, what is a woman?
And you're not going to find out.
Based on what I'm saying, would you ever want to move to America?
They say no, never.
Walsh is an expert on hip-hop and rap culture.
Okay, so it's time to dip our toes back into the music scene and see what songs the kids are listening to today. The one that was brought to my attention by someone in the comment section, it's a new joint. It's some real dope from my homie Polo G. I've been a big fan of Polo G for a long time.
And most importantly, Walsh is uniquely good at video games, which allows him to reach a unique demographic.
Well, maybe the civilians should get out of the freaking way. What are you doing running through live fire, you morons?
If you like this video, a subscribe helps YouTube recommend these videos to more people. Number 3, Jeremy Boring. Boring is co-founder of the Daily Wire, which means he often stands at a podium and says things that sound important.
Thank you. You all still have jobs. We've been doing these town halls now really since the beginning of the company.
Boring recently announced a project that I might be interested in when it's released.
Today, I'm proud to tell you that we will be launching Daily Wire Kids.
Boring is a Protestant Christian. Here are some things we could find out about what Boring believes.
And, though it pains me to invoke him on this awful platform, Jesus came to reconcile sinners to a righteous God. He needs help. He needs prayer. He needs peace. He needs the healing care of the actual divine Logos, who is himself a Jew, and who also calls himself love.
We couldn't find any information about what church Boring attends or what denomination he belongs to. If you betray Boring, he'll start a razor company.
Harry's Razors doesn't want your business. I do. They seem to hate you, and I can't say that I love you, but I don't mean you any specific harm.
Number 4, Michael Knowles. Knowles is basically at the bottom of the hierarchy at the Daily Wire.
And that was just too much for Harry.
I want to know, Ben, why are you a Knowles hater? Can you explain your complex relationship?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, I can.
Knowles earned this kind of disdain from Ben Shapiro by writing a best-selling blank book.
Michael Knowles, who wrote a blank book with a quote from me on the cover and proceeded to sell 250,000 copies of that blank book. And then I, like the fool that I am, the generous fool that I am, finding Michael Knowles an agent from which he earned another massive advance for a book filled with no words. Why do I hate Michael Knowles? Because the gods have smiled upon Michael Knowles for no reason I can discern.
Like Walsh, Knowles is also a devout Catholic.
Matt Walsh and I are Catholics, but we get this question all the time. People ask, who's the better Catholic at the Daily Wire?
And like with Walsh, Knowles fearlessly fights for various issues that Christians also fight for.
I'm always very grateful
when left-wingers come on the show. Not an easy thing to do. Most of them just refuse to do it. So I'm very pleased that our guest is Bronte Remzik, who is a third-year medical student, a social activist, very much in support of legal abortion. Just when you think things cannot get any queerer, the Speaker of the House of Representatives appears on a drag queen TV show to declare that transvestitism is what America is all about.
Number 5, Candace Owens. Owens is arguably the most controversial figure of the group, which, considering the group, is saying a lot.
Owens' critics say she's jumped on the Trump bandwagon just to get attention, and that her provocative comments threaten to normalize racism, sexism, and transphobia.
Of course, the plantations of the 21st century are not physical, they are virtual. The owners of these plantations are once again, almost without exception, Democrats. Think about it. What today are certain areas of Chicago, Baltimore, Detroit, St. Louis, Atlanta, Milwaukee, and Philadelphia, all run for decades by Democrats, but virtual plantations? Many who live in these areas are largely, if not totally, dependent on their masters, the politicians, for their food, housing, and health care.
In 2019, Owens was certainly not a Christian.
They do not believe in religion. Like, there's just a thing. It's a trend. I've noticed. I'm not religious. I'm not saying that, there's something wrong with it.
However, since then, Owens seems to have converted and is now an ardent defender of Protestant Christianity.
Happy Sunday. Jesus is the King of Kings. There is no battle you are fighting alone. Jesus is King.
This is certainly an encouraging development in Owens' spiritual life, although like with Bora, we couldn't find anything about what church Owens attends or what denomination she would affiliate with.
Merry Christmas Eve. I hope everyone makes time today to attend a Christmas Eve service/Mass. Always a highlight of my year.
Like the other hosts at the Daily Wire, Owens is popular among Christians for various reasons. Owens stands up to celebrities like Cardi B, who promote sexual degradation.
But you don't watch the Grammys and see two women half naked grinding their vaginas on each other. That's not what you see for the Grammys, right? She does this because she wants to get clicks, because she wants people to comment.
And Owens fights for various causes that Christians also fight for.
When women are out on the front lines demanding a right to end the life of children that they perceive to be inconvenient, we have to accept that we have been brainwashed into a cult. It became super surreal to hear them saying, it's not a life, it's not a life. And at that moment, I think what it really demonstrated was that in America, we're not debating abortion. We've never been debating abortion. We're talking about child sacrifice. The patriarchy didn't decide. Men didn't get together in a board meeting and say, okay, let's make the women have the children, right? God designed that. And when you have a child, let me tell you, of all the things that I do, all of the important people that I meet, your biggest accomplishment is when your child smiles back at you. Family is the most important thing every single day.
Number 6, Andrew Klavan. Klavan is a Jew turned Christian who wrote the book The Great Good Thing. A secular Jew comes to faith in Christ. Klavan has won awards for his writing and storytelling.
Andrew is the author of many novels, including True Crime, which was made into a movie starring Clint Eastwood.
It seems that Klavan is an Anglican, and though I'm sure we have some theological disagreements, I was encouraged to hear what Klavan said about trying to find a church to attend.
So one of the most amazing things that has happened to me in my new home is I have found a church that I love. I have found a church that solves the problem. You have no idea. Well, maybe some of you do because you've been writing to me about it. How hard it is to find a church. How hard is it to preach the gospel? It's written down. You can read it and then talk about what you read and what you think it means. That's your whole job.
Like the others at the Daily Wire, Klavan fights for various causes that Christians support.
So I'm really excited to get a chance to talk to Kirk Cameron. Everybody knows him from Growing Pains back in the 80s, but also from that massive hit, Fireproof. He's invested a lot of time and energy and faith in family-focused films and television shows. He's got a new film coming out Monday, June 13th. It'll be in theaters June 13th and 14th. It's called Homeschool Awakening, a subject very dear to my heart.
Number 7, Brett Cooper. Many consider Cooper to be the female version of Ben Shapiro.
Every time people ask me how often I get compared to Ben, it's every day. Tweets, DMs, all of it. It does not annoy me.
Cooper is unique in that her primary focus is YouTube. Her channel is called The Comment Section with Brett Cooper. It's kind of insane how quickly it's grown. What's Cooper's secret? Well, she covers everything viral. She has a unique and engaging personality, and the Daily Wire promotes her channel. All the ingredients for YouTube success right there. As someone who creates content for YouTube myself, I find Cooper's content particularly interesting. I couldn't find anything about Cooper's religious beliefs, so I highly doubt she is a Christian. However, she seems to generally fight for similar conservative values as the other Daily Wire hosts.
I personally believe that Hollywood and entertainment, film, and TV really dictates a lot of our cultural attitudes because we spend hours and hours on end, especially young people, taking in that content. And whether we, are conscious of it or not, we are taking in their messages, absorbing their themes, learning subconsciously from the things that these TV shows and films are promoting. It is scary that there are people out there that think like that. Kid-friendly is not amplifying youth voices. It is making sure that an event is suitable and appropriate for children. You are an elementary school teacher. Your job is not to confuse children. It is to guide them on their learning adventure, which should not be about your gender identity crisis.
Number 8, Jordan Peterson. It was recently announced that Peterson would be joining the new Daily Wire Plus.
I mean, sure, Daily Wire Plus is going to have the Daily Wire, and sure, we're going to expand our relationship with PragerU, and sure, we're going to make more movies, and sure, we're going to make kids content. But I got one more plus. Here it is.
Why is Peterson so popular? I was first introduced to Peterson when I watched this interview with a hostile host that went viral.
But you're exercising your freedom of speech to certainly risk offending me, and that's fine. I think more power to you as far as I'm concerned.
You haven't for your terms, and my poor self. I'm just trying to work that out. I mean,
ha, gotcha.
You have got me.
I was impressed by how calmly and effectively Peterson responded to the hostile questions he received. Peterson is primarily known for teaching men how to be men.
This series is focused in on how men can be men. Why do you think there is such a crisis of masculinity in the first place, and why are there so many people out there who are angry at you for even talking to men?
And like the other Daily Wire hosts, Peterson is fearless in standing up to cancel culture.
I've essentially been banned from Twitter as a consequence. I say banned, although technically I have been suspended. But the suspension will not be lifted unless I delete the hateful tweet in question, and I would rather die than do that.
Peterson has said some very interesting things about Christianity.
You can debate about whether or not he actually lived and whether there's credible objective evidence for that, but it doesn't matter in some sense because it does, but there's a sense in which it doesn't matter because there's still a historical story, and so what you have in the figure of Christ is an actual person who actually lived, plus a myth, and in some sense Christ is the union of those two things. The problem is I probably believe that, but I don't know, I'm amazed at my own belief and I don't understand it.
Quick question, are you a Christian?
I suppose the most straightforward answer to that is yes, although I think it's let's leave it at yes.
Well, I'm a bit dissatisfied with that because there are so many kinds of Christians, and I would never imagine that you were a very literal-minded Christian.
Well, there are truths other than the literal that perhaps are more truthful than even literal truths. The Bible is true in a very strange way. It's true in that it provides the basis for truth itself. Without it, there couldn't even be the possibility of truth.
But is Jordan Peterson really a Christian? Well, based on the things he has said, the answer is pretty clearly no. Peterson seems to believe a version of Christianity that is not historical, orthodox, biblical Christianity.
Here's my humble opinion as to the spiritual state of Jordan Peterson. I believe that he's sitting under the terrifying weight of God's law and consequently feeling the burden of his own sins. Anyone who gives themselves to secular psychology will end up confused when it comes to the simplicity of the gospel.
Whatever you think about Jordan Peterson, you can't deny that he says some very interesting, thought-provoking things.
We have this sense in the world that human beings live in antagonism to nature and that we're actually a malevolent force, and that our social structures, which are clearly capable of the commission of atrocity, are fundamentally oppressive, patriarchal in their nature. And so then if you're a male in a society with that ethos, the motive force that drives you into the world to live is associated with rapaciousness and despoilation on the natural front, and then oppression and atrocity on the social front. It's like, well then, if you're the least bit conscientious, because this sort of accusation hurts conscientious young men the most, then the best you can do is, well, let's say castrate yourself.
So how should Christians respond to the incredible growth and popularity of the Daily Wire? Well, I see the Daily Wire as a source of God's common grace towards our culture and society. While the Daily Wire is not explicitly Christian, there are many Christians with significant influence in the organization.
Today, we're delighted to have Megan Bashan with us.
And it seems clear that the Daily Wire is committed to fighting for principles like religious freedom and free speech, which Christians support. And no other organization fights for these things as effectively as the Daily Wire.
The realm. Do you know what the realm is? It's the thousand blades of Aegon's enemies. A story we agree to tell each other over and over till we forget that it's a lie.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back for another Game of Thrones and A Song of Ice and Fire update video. Alright, my friends, in this new video, let's revisit a subject I discussed in one of my older videos. When everyone from House of the Dragon recently sat down with Entertainment Weekly, they revealed some new information that I think most of you will find interesting. I know I certainly did, because what I found out is so much worse than we all initially thought. Now, as you all know, when Game of Thrones was entering its final season a little over 3 years ago, HBO decided they did not want to leave Westeros forever. It's no secret that Game of Thrones is still the most successful show in television history. Not only because of how many fans they had, but also because of the amount of money this series was able to make HBO. There are some estimations that say Game of Thrones made them billions of dollars, so you can certainly understand why HBO would want to make sure a Game of Thrones series stayed on our televisions. Before the main series Game of Thrones even ended, they started writing several new shows. According to a recent article, HBO did some research on George R. R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire saga. Afterwards, they said they had about 15 different ideas for shows, but only 5 of those actually moved forward to get turned into actual scripts. Now, before House of the Dragon was given the green light, there was another show that HBO was focusing on the most. This was a series about the Long Night, when the White Walkers originally invaded Westeros roughly 8,000 years ago.
One of the HBO shows in development. Can you tell us about any of those, by the way? Blood Moon has wrapped something, hasn't it?
I can't.
Go on.
There's probably an HBO agent in the in the auditorium even now. I can say, as I have said before, we started out with a number of different ideas, all of them prequels. One show, which I've been calling The Long Night, but HBO keeps saying it's not titled yet. So the show that's not called The Long Night yet has just finished filming up in Belfast and is now, and other places, not just Belfast, Italy as well. And Jane Goldman is the writer and the showrunner on that. You've probably been familiar with her work. She was the scriptwriter on several of the X-Men movies. She did Kick-Ass, and she did the Kingsman, both Kingsman things. She scripted Neil Gaiman's Stardust. So she's a very experienced screenwriter, and she's done this story. And it is set, 5,000 years in the past of Westeros, so way before the events of Game of Thrones. And that's the one that is furthest along at the moment. And it's in pre-production, and right now it's just a pilot, but it's got Naomi Watts in it, starring. It's got Miranda Richardson, a lot of other very exciting actors, and we'll probably be finding out in the next couple months whether HBO is actually going to order the full series of that.
That is very
And
exciting.
meanwhile,